Right. Denise, how you doing?
I'm swell. How are you?
I'm really happy. And let me just welcome people because this is the first time, Denise, yay,
That we've
that
got other people.
we've got other people that can join us and they're just clicking in to the direct link. And then we'll be talking. And when they want to share with us, if they want to share with us, they're totally at choice. They can just push on the chat or they can
I was
push.
trying to open my chat and I could not do it.
Okay, hon, let
This
me see what I can do about
maybe
that.
because I'm in full screen. Let me see if I go down.
I just clicked on chat, but let's see. Chat.
Yeah, when I click on chat, it's a whole page.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting too. It says meeting group chat. If you click on that, that's
But
what
it
I get.
used to be that you could have that on the side.
It's on the side. I've got it on the side, sweetie. So
I don't
it's
have it
got
on the side.
Andrea and Angela and Denise. Well, girl, I'll watch the chat.
Okay. Where'd
So
you go, Andrea?
she's with us. She just turned off her video, and that's good.
Okay.
And Angela's with us too. So let's begin. Are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Hello, my friends. I'm Holly Elissa Bruno, and I'm here with the famous Denise R. And we have every Monday afternoon the joy of being with each other and with you as we talk about two trauma survivors, now four or five trauma survivors, walking each other home. So we welcome you to this weekly podcast, and here's our purpose. We are trauma survivors. We know trauma survivors. We know adult trauma survivors and children and everything in between. And here's our hope and our purpose is to find ways not to run away from the trauma or dismiss or deny or pretend that we don't have it, but how can we live full, complete, true self lives? And so every week, that's what we talk about. We've been talking about relationships. How on earth can we do relationships? And this week, we're going to
For four
focus on,
years.
yes. Thank you, Denise. You want to tell them about that?
Yeah, we've been doing this group for 4 years or over 4 years, actually, since right before COVID.
Right. Denise is exactly right, because we started this when the book that I wrote called Happiness is Running Through the Streets to Find You. And here's the important bit was also important, translating trauma's harsh legacy into healing. We did this through Cambridge, England for years, and we're still buddies with those people in England, but now we're also going broader and welcome everybody. So here's how it goes. We just talk, we ask questions. You're welcome to chime in, and chiming in would be to just push your video if you want to be seen, or push your audio if you want to be heard. And since we're having some trouble with the group chat, I'm just going to say we'll work it as it comes along.
We'll
One
do our
thing
best.
we'll do our best together, honey. And one thing we need you to know is that we want these programs to be safe. Trauma can be triggering. We also know about glimmers for trauma. So trauma can be triggered at any point by anything, a smell, a touch, a sound, a word, a memory. And if that happens, we invite you to take care of yourself as we will. Do whatever you need to do. Denise and I both have, for example,
Bottle of
water
water.
because we get dry mouth, and that says, whoops, maybe there's some fear going on. We also have, and Denise is going to tell you about this, we have a resource where you can just type in a text right in and get help from a warm line if anything troubles you and you want to talk with somebody else. So Denise,
So
can
you
you tell
just,
us that?
yep, just touch your Google and say warm line directory. And it gives you every state. Well, you can't, there. Every state is in there, and you just touch the state that you're in, and they will get you, you will get a phone number.
And then
There's
you
like
can
three
just,
options on each state.
right. And there are a few states that don't have any. And that's okay, because if you click, for example, in New York, you'll find ones that apply to everybody. And specifically, if you go to Cincinnati, you'll find ones that apply to everybody. So that's if you feel like I just want to talk with somebody. It's not a hotline. It's a warm line, which means if anything we talk about feels unsafe or you feel like, oh my God, I really need to talk with somebody about this right now. The warm line is peer counselors. They're folk like us who are trauma survivors who are trained to be with you. So we want you to feel safe. And if at any point you don't feel safe, please take care of yourself. And we'll be modeling that as we go along. So Denise, how would you describe this program to people who are joining us perhaps for the first time?
Well, at first it was not interactive like it is now. Holly Elissa we'd read a portion of her book, and then we would discuss that. She would discuss that, and we would the viewers could chat in the chat box on the side, but I don't have that today. But and we would chat, and she would answer our questions, and she knows a lot about trauma recovery, and she studied it.
Thanks, Denise. And then we went from one person basically to one that was me with the chat, and the chat started getting really interactive wonderfully. And so people would pose questions and we'd take it from there. And now, Denise, what's changed, hon?
Now we have Zoom, and I can talk and listen and look, and it's really fun.
It is really fun. And it's just a place to be our true selves. So please take care of yourself, participate to the extent you want. And if anything doesn't feel comfortable, you can also tell us. You can also contact us afterwards. And we can type in. I've just said hello to Andrea. Glad she's with us. So let's just go ahead, my friends. It's now 3:09. And Denise, the topic is boundaries. What on earth does boundaries have to do with being a trauma survivor to you?
To me, out of fear of being traumatized, I developed really good boundaries, as in, you can't get to me kind of boundaries, you know? But I believe that, as it turns out, I was too good at it, because now I had, no one ever flirts with me. No one ever gets a crush on me. Uh, it's weird. So I think my boundaries are too good.
And you've had a situation recently, which I won't reveal unless you want to talk about it, but where you were starting to have a connection, where you might have built a relationship and your boundaries said, mm-mm.
Right. I
So
did
they're
have a crush, and it was really fun, and it was reciprocated. And but then I had a trigger, and that person was unable to be supportive. So that that was my boundary.
So you know what? Thanks. So Denise is like identifying for us, and we're going to invite you guys, Angela and Andrea, and anybody else who listens later or joins us. When you feel and think about trauma, being a survivor or knowing people who are survivors, and you think about upholding boundaries, let's start with this. Where on earth did we learn that we could have boundaries? Or in my case, where did I learn that I couldn't have boundaries? And I think Janice, looks like you're ready to say something. How about you, girl?
Well, I'm just processing the question, and wondering, when did I get boundaries? I don't think I got boundaries till like 35 years old or so, when I had a betrayal.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, I was just open and free. Do what you want, say what you want. And I was still not healing. And I was, kept my mouth shut and didn't have too many needs.
So what I'm understanding you're saying about a boundary is your ability to say no and to say yes. No, that doesn't work for me. Yes, let's keep going. You have that power. And when you say you didn't have boundaries, what does that mean? Did you feel you didn't have the power or the
Right.
awareness or what?
Yes. I didn't have the power nor the awareness. I never said no. Um,
And where did
Yeah,
that come from, sweetie? Did you get a chance as a child? Did your mom or anybody ever talk with you about you can say no or you can have boundaries?
no,
Right. Okay, so
no.
go ahead.
I
I
was
want
in
to,
abusive
yeah, go
house.
ahead.
I was abused in my home, and it was, the male patriarchal character in the home was free to take what he wanted. And if that was me, that was me.
So he had no boundaries. And even if you had put up a boundary and said, no, I don't want you to come here, he would have said what?
I would have never said that. I did
Mhm.
not have, I had no power.
Okay, this is pretty powerful. And I want to join in too. And folk like Angela, if you're listening and you want to join us anytime, just let us know.
Yes.
Here's
Hi, Holly.
Hi, Angela. Go
Sorry.
ahead, sweetie. Yeah.
Hi. Hey, sweetie. So sorry I'm not on video right now. I've got
Okay.
um
Oh,
boundaries.
where,
Boundaries.
where did you learn
First,
them?
I don't think I learned them until I was an adult,
Mm-hmm.
until a lot older, because boundaries take strength. Boundaries take inner perspective to realize I am worthy enough to say no. And before that, you just take what's given to you, no matter how this shit is dealt with. Excuse the
Right.
language there. No matter what trauma, crap load of a truck is poured on top of you, you just smile and just take it. And boundaries saying no and understanding no is a complete sentence. And I don't need to qualify that, quantify that, or respond to you and walk away. That's a full boundary. But that unfortunately is not until I got older.
So
And
this, go ahead,
and
sweetie.
I got trampled
Yeah,
on by that point. Yeah.
I hear you, girl. And what I want to say is you and Denise are saying the same thing, which is as children, there was no, you were not ever encouraged, nor was I, to be able to say, no, this is me. That's you. You can't cross my boundary. In fact, you said we've all used the word power. You didn't feel you had the power to say to anybody, don't do that. And Denise said, I couldn't even say anything. And I'll speak here because what I want to say is I was raised in a family without boundaries. And my take on trauma survivors is that most of us are from chaotic environments where there weren't any boundaries. The only people that had boundaries were the people in power, and their boundaries were to tell us, no, get out of here. I don't want you. Get out. You're gone, whatever. But there was no encouragement. I'm going to say this on the surface level, and I'm going to go deeper. There was no encouragement for me to know that I had the power, the right, or even the being to say, I don't like that. I'm going back though, then the deeper sense is this. You know what? It takes knowing who I am. Angela, how do you feel about this? Denise, it takes for me knowing who I am so I can say, this is where I begin and you end. Problem too with boundaries was there was such enmeshment. You guys all know that psychological term, right? There was such enmeshment. My mother, I was her mother. I took care of her. I knew all of her secrets. She told me everything. There was no boundary of respect. And same thing with my father. My father said things to me that were totally inappropriate to say to a child, especially a girl child. The truth is, we all get intergenerational trauma. My father didn't have boundaries in his family, I assume. My mother didn't have boundaries in her family. So they didn't know how to do boundaries. What they did was totally had a boundary free, which meant another word for boundary free is unsafe.
Right.
Does that make sense to you, Denise or
Mhm.
Andrea?
Oh, absolutely. Unsafe. Yes. Hurt. And that just leads to children being hurt.
Yes.
And depending like Denise was saying, depending the patriarchy, or the patriarchy that's being instilled with you, even priests, even those doctors, pharmacists, we're talking about people in power, people who you respect, cops, they can take what they want, take your essence in
Yeah.
every sense of the word.
Yeah, Denise, what were you going to say, hon?
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah. People that assume they have power, or they do have power over us, and they've been granted that power by their position. But so many do not approach it with ethics.
So here's something that I want to follow up. Thank you for both all of you for that. Simone de Beauvoir, who wrote a powerful book in the 1940s, I think, called The Second Sex, she said, women and other people that are in power minorities, I might think of myself, you might think of yourself as being a powerful person. But here's the thing Simone de Beauvoir said. She said, if people don't see us as powerful, we're not powerful.
Right.
Now, I want to smack that upside the head because within myself, I'm powerful. Yes. And I advocate and I am strong. I went to law school. I did all these things to be clear and out front about speaking my piece. And yet, my friends, as Angela said, I can go to a doctor and the doctor can not notice me. I can be in a religion practicing, and I can't stand up in front of even if I were a spiritual person, I couldn't train. If I'm a female, I can't stand up and give a homily. In schools, we all know the research that said boys are going to get called on much more than girls. And all that stuff is still going on.
It's still going.
So how do we have boundaries if we ourselves are not seen as powerful? And Angela and Andrea, what's your take on that?
Do you have a place where you feel powerful? I know in my classroom, once I got my classroom, I felt not only responsible, it was responsibility that gave me the power. I was responsible for the safety of these children. And so I took it on, my power from that. And that's where I first practiced power.
And what kind of boundaries did you put up, Denise? Supposing someone just wanted to come in the classroom.
I'd send them to the director.
So that's boundary. You had a right to who came in
Right.
and who didn't come in. Now that's a basic boundary.
Well,
Andrea,
in the Head Start program, anybody, it's a public program. Anybody can come in if they want. But if they're inappropriate, we can, ask them to leave.
and so I have worked with programs that had children out on the playground, and an angry partner of one of the teachers jumped across the fence or climbed over it and hit the teacher. Now that's totally boundaryless on his part. He wasn't respecting the boundary. The teacher got hurt. So boundaries, I think, are there to protect the integrity and the identity of the person on both sides. You guys all know about the word, what is it called? Doormat? Is that what we were?
Yes.
Anybody want to say what that means to you, that we were taught to be doormats?
Right. To welcome people to wipe their feet on you.
And then come on in. I want to say, my friends, that this is really scary and I felt very sad about it. In fact, I still grieve it. When I was growing up, had a room, never by myself until my sisters went off to college, but the door was open. The door to my bedroom was open. Were you allowed? It wasn't even shut. Anyone could come in, and they did. And now I'm going to say something that's, put up your boundaries and please take care of yourself. I am a survivor of incest, and I had no way to say who could come into my room at night. And all I could do when that happened was try to pretend I was asleep, but that didn't work often. Or if I couldn't do anything about it, which is what happened most of the time, I learned it wasn't a boundary, but it was a way to keep myself safe, because boundaries are about safety. I kept myself safe by dissociating. Do you know what I
Same.
mean by that? Yeah, tell me what that
Same.
means, Denise. Dissociate.
I would pretend like I was asleep, and
Hmm?
which I was pretty good at that part.
I tried.
And then as I became more fearful, or as I was invaded more, I would disassociate and go up in the corner of my room and watch and tell myself, you will never forget this. This is wrong. Don't ever forget this. And that was the message I gave myself.
Wow. And I'm going back to when I was younger, because the abuse started when I was quite young. And what I remember was when it became, it wasn't intimate for me, but when I was being invaded, my boundary, myself was being touched. It's totally inappropriate. I would just somehow inside of myself, I don't know how I knew to do it, but I knew how to do it. I saw myself leaving my body behind, going out the window, up into above the clouds, up to the stars, up. I'd sit on the moon if I got tired. And my aim was to go up to to heaven, where all of those angels were up there playing lyres and cellos and harps, and they would welcome me. And that's how I escaped. But escape is not the same as having a boundary.
No.
When I learned boundaries, yes, I was an adult too. I want to give another example here. And I want to ask you guys, did you ever try to use a boundary when you were a child? And if so, what happened? Did you try that? So I have, fortunately, in the book that I wrote, I have a journal that I wrote in when I was a child. And I have notes of what happened from elementary school. And one of my notes, and I put this in the book, says, my father hurt me. He was he was violent, he was abusive, and he hurt my hand. Now, it was okay, I assume, for me to say, you have hurt my hand. I couldn't say, you have violated me in other ways, because didn't have words for that. But I said to him, you hurt my hand, and you can't do that. And I am going to have to leave. And when I read that, I thought, wow, I'm using that one example at a time when he literally could have broken my fingers, to say that no, you can't do this. I'm going to leave. I put up the boundary. I said, I'm leaving. Now, did you guys think about leaving when you were growing up? I did. I had all these intricate plans for how I was going to take a bus and go, or I was going
I
to,
did.
yeah,
Yeah,
tell us, girl.
I did. Holly, I
Yeah.
moved out. My parents say ran away. I moved out. I had a plan. I had my place already. I had an apartment. I even bought plates. Sorry. I bought plates. I bought everything, the bed. And I moved out at 16 years old.
16. Wow. And is that the legal age in your state, Angela, or is that just what you decided you were going to do?
I couldn't do it anymore. That was it. I drew the line.
That's it.
When you're that young and you try to talk to people and no one hears you, no one listens to you, you just give up and realize it's up to me. Like, suicide is very easily to contemplate when no one wants to listen to you, when no one's there for you. But at some point, some sparkle of you just doesn't want to give up because you still have life. And I had to move out. It was either that or I was going to give in.
I hear you. How did you ever save the money? Were you babysitting, or how did you do that?
My parents had a bank account under my name, and all birthday, Christmas, and a lot of gifts from other people went in there as far as money goes. And that is what I took out. Because I had
Wow.
not been able to work, I had not been allowed to do anything prior to that. My life was very, very different. And once on my own, I learned how to cook, how to clean, how to, manage everything on my own. I learned the hard way.
Did you go to school at the same time?
I did. I did.
Okay.
Luckily, I went to private school,
Mm-hmm.
and the school was paid for years in advance. So I was completely set to finish off my school. So I still graduated with the rest of my class.
Wow. Incredible. Thank you for
Still,
sharing this.
still one of the top 5 in a 300 all girl school. So that
Nice.
was,
Bravo.
I'm,
Bravo.
I think I'm
Did,
trying
an- did
something.
anybody at school intervene and say, wait a minute, we got to help you with this?
People at school were incredulous and said, you need to go back home. Why are you doing this? Your mother's such a Christian woman. She goes to church. Look at her. Oh, Christianity. I'm not even going to go down that road. I'm not going to go the hypocrisy where people should just be kind. There should just be a religion on kindness and
Right.
good, not necessarily veneering and assuming that because somebody wears a cross that they're great, or because someone has the priest collar that is okay when they're the ones who are being abusive too.
Right.
So I hear you, girl, and you're right. Today we're not going to go into the other systems beyond family systems, but absolutely, there's the religious system that doesn't have boundaries in many cases. There's the educational system, the medical system, the club systems, all of them. Did we learn boundaries there? You know what? I remembered as a Girl Scout, Brownie Scout, I had to pledge on my honor, I will do my duty to God and my country and to help others, especially those at home. Does anyone remember that? The command at all of the systems I was in was to be a servant to my family. Now let's get back to boundaries, my friend. We've now heard some stories about really powerful stories about how we broke out. I confronted my father. I want to tell you the rest of that because I was hoping he would say, I won't hurt you anymore. But he was of a temper where he was also a narcissist. And as you know, narcissists don't have any sense of other people. So when I told him I was leaving, he literally wrote, "Don't leave me, daughter. I couldn't live without you." Now that was a total, yeah, Andrea, I see your face, total invasion of my boundaries because it said to me forever and always, I was responsible for the life of my father. And I believe that. I believe that for decades. I was responsible for him. So look, what I'm hearing you saying, Denise, is you couldn't have even a voice to say a boundary. I put up a boundary and it was totally slammed with, you're responsible for me. You can't be responsible. I'm not responsible for you. Angela, you're saying you did everything you could, and then you said, I'm out of here. And you miraculously did that for yourself. I want to just ask Andrea, is there anything you'd like to add about when you put up a boundary? Was it respected, or would you tell us about that if you want to? You can always pass. We're always at choice here about speaking.
So I didn't have any boundaries in my childhood. No one in my family did, as I've heard some of you share. Um, I decided when I decided to have a boundary, um, I was 17 and I decided I'm leaving. And I put things that were important to me into a black trash bag, and I decided I was leaving. And the reaction from my parents was good, good, just get out of here. But they were mostly absent while I was growing up. They were alcoholics. They were not home. There were no boundaries because there were no rules. There was no structure. There was no nothing. Like, I was the parent of a sister who was 4 years younger than me. And my only concern when I left was what would happen to her, but she was the golden child, and she was in private high school, and she had very fancy clothing, and they'd given her a car. Meanwhile, I was not allowed to use the laundry soap that belonged to the family or the shampoo that was in the bathroom. I was not allowed to go to private school. I was not allowed to have medical care, dental care. So when I left and I was 17 and I had my things in a trash bag, they were really glad to get rid of me because I somehow had been the scapegoat who, I don't know, was like a witness to their bad behavior. And they were glad for a witness to be gone. I don't know.
You do know. And I just want to honor what you're saying before you go on, because that being a witness, each one of us, all four of us, and people listening, we were witnesses to crimes.
Yeah.
Right.
Crimes. Crimes. And we could have, in later years, not during the time when I was growing up, because I'm 78, this was the 1940s and 50s, and there was no help. If I had run away, I would have been sent back.
Right.
There were no halfway houses. There was no place I could go. I had this dream that I could go and find a job somehow. Of course, I was too young, support myself, and then start making friends, because I could trust friends. I couldn't trust family members. So the point I want to just close here with Andrea is, because we were witnesses, that made us a threat to the family, because we might blow the cover. We might say out loud, my father did this, or this is what's happening. And it was all so hush hush and secret. We all know that, according to Dr. Claudia Black, or if you haven't heard this, it's well worth listening to, there are 3 rules that traumatized children learn. Number 1, don't you dare talk. Don't you tell anybody about this. You might witness it, Andrea, but you can't tell anybody about it. You got to be silent. And especially don't tell anybody outside the family. You can only trust people in the family. Well, guess what? Who's doing the abuse is in the family. So don't talk is the first ground rule Dr. Claudia Black talks about. Number 2, don't trust anybody outside the family. Well, hell, couldn't trust people inside the family. So who am I going to trust? I've trusted my friends. And sometimes I over-trusted people too, was very vulnerable and gullible. And then the third rule is don't talk, don't trust. And here's the harshest one. Don't feel. I was taught if I didn't feel what was going on with me, if I dissociated from my body, if I denied what was happening, then I could somehow survive. These are the traits of a survivor, not a person who's living life. And my oldest sister, who died early, and we all know that the ACEs, the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, says traumatized kids have a shorter lifespan. And so my sister got one of those traditional diseases that befalls trauma survivors, like there's heart disease, there's cancer, there's lung disease, there's also autoimmune deficiency. Our immune systems are so shut down by having to be on edge all the time that my sister, sad to think of how she got chronic progressive MS and had a very slow, dreadful death. And she survived, you ready for this, by having what's called dissociative amnesia. She couldn't remember anything from our childhoods. So, my friends, thank you for raising that. Being a witness, Andrea, dangerous because we might spill the beans. And trust me, when I wrote my book, I went to lawyers to make sure I couldn't be sued. Then I reminded myself as an attorney, anybody can sue anybody anytime. So the next thing I did was went to the insurance people and said, I need to be covered. And that was expensive. Be covered in case anything I said, anything I wrote, people sued me, even if they didn't have a case. Witness is dangerous. Yeah, Andrea, were you going to say something?
Thank you. I just wanted to say that I think that my mother is a pathological narcissist, and she was a victim of us, our entire lives. I sometimes say the only reason she had children was to be a victim of somebody. But in her narcissism, what she did from the time I was a young girl is she set out to discredit me to everyone that knew us, all of the aunts, uncles, teachers, nuns, priests, anyone who I could have possibly spoken to about the abuse that was happening at home. They thought that because my own mother was telling them what a horrible child I was, that I was somehow crazy, defective, on drugs, which I wasn't. That whatever I said would not be believed. So it was a setup. It was a setup from my own mother. And, I had no one to go to. And the odd thing is that for some reason, about 3 months after I left home, I was so hungry. I was so physically sick and depleted that I asked to come back home, and they said no. They were done. And, that was it. And I thank God they said no. Actually, thank God they said no, because I survived and everything. But I just wanted to say that about a lot of us probably were discredited before we could even try to seek some sort of help or support.
Right.
First off, I want to say I am so sorry that that happened to you. And Angela, I'm so sorry that that happened to you. And I see the courage, Denise too, and me too. I see the courage. And I also see what you're saying as another boundary violation. Do you see that as invading your boundaries, Angela? When your mom was speaking to all these people that were your people?
I didn't even think about that. I hadn't even thought of it that way. Thank you
What do you
for,
think?
thank
What
you
do you
for,
think?
I don't even know. Honestly, I am a 55-year-old person who still doesn't know how to define or think about those boundaries very well. Yeah.
I want to
But it
say for
helps
myself.
me understand what they are. It helps me to hear that.
So and let's talk about what is the boundary that we need. And we've already said it's saying, Denise has talked about saying no, and it's saying yes. It's also, I think one of you already said this, it's having an identity. It's having an identity that's mine, that nobody else can take from me. And what I felt for the 17 years I had in my war zone of growing up, I felt like I couldn't have an identity. Nobody ever asked, what do you think about that? How do you feel about that? Nobody cared. And even when I went to school in the 50s, it was all about memorization, which I could do well unless my complex post-traumatic stress disorder got in my way, and then I couldn't see straight or think straight. But I thought that was me going crazy like my mother. So the thing about boundaries has to do with there has to be somebody inside yourself, inside myself, that can say yes or no. I didn't have anybody helping me with that. Did you? Did anybody have anybody talking with you? Who are you? What do you want? Denise, you're saying no.
No, never.
I'm so sad about that. Angela, what about you? Did you have anybody that was there that could say good for you or to listen to you?
No. Absolutely not.
So
That's
do
what we
see?
should be teaching in school,
Yes.
emotional safety. But the system is set up to protect those that the patriarchy, the privileged ones that take what they want.
The people in power who are wanting to maintain power. And in some of our situations, like we've already heard this afternoon, it was women as well. It was women that were the abusers as well.
Right.
Denise, I would like you to share with us if you're willing to, because this so encouraged me. And Angela, oh my gosh, Andrea, I'd like you to hear what Denise did in her classroom. How did you help? You did many things, sweetheart, but what's one of the things you did at Head Start to help each child who came into that classroom feel like she was safe, she belonged, and no one was going to get in that classroom and hurt her?
So we had a greeting time, and each child had a little popsicle stick with their face glued onto it. And if they wanted to decorate it other ways, they could. But if you just had your head and a stick, and when we had a school family tree, and we had a wish you well, I made it look like a wishing well with the roof on it. And so when they came in, they would go to the wish you well and get their stick, and I would greet each child and I'm glad you're here. And they would say, I am here, I am safe, and put it into the school family tree. And then we were all one group. I had 2 groups a day for quite a while. So then when they left at the end of the day, I would personally say goodbye to them, individual child, and they would take their stick out of the school family tree and put it into the wish you well. And I would say, I wish you well.
Andrea, what did that sound like to you?
That is really beautiful, Denise, and really touching. I can't even imagine the amount of relief that those children felt to come into the classroom and to come into safety, knowing the way our lives were when we were children.
Right.
That would mean the world to go into that safe place. So, really, I just want to honor you for doing that, for the
Well,
kids.
it was my mission to make the world a better place for the children that arrived, or the children of the world. And so I did not have safety. So I gave myself a good childhood in the classroom, and I gave myself safety in that way too. Right now, if I get triggered, or if I feel somebody's trying to get me or whatever, or I walk in somewhere and feel unsafe, I go to myself, I am here, I am safe, and turn around and get out. I gave myself the tools to be safe now by giving them to children.
That's beautiful, Denise. That is absolutely beautiful, because right now, children are still getting hurt.
Yes, they are.
Right now, children are still going into our classrooms, still being hurt. So this is beautiful that you are still creating that safe space for them. Thank you, Denise.
And
Yes.
Angela, you've worked with early childhood students as well. Is there anything example you can give us about ways in which you have helped children feel safe and their boundaries respected?
I think by knowing the children, most people rush to think that it's okay to give a hug.
No.
I don't need to give a child a hug or even a touch, because they may be triggered by that. So just by my silent presence, being close by and close observations, I learn what the child may need and want from me, or maybe not even from me. Maybe they are not comfortable with me, and I accept that, and I'm perfectly fine with them in their own way, allowing them to say no, whether they're verbalizing it or they're just doing it through some sort of body cue and body language.
Just going to welcome Emma from England. Nick is with us. Hi. She's an old timer from 4 years ago. And I want to just bring Nick in and also at the same time thank Angela for saying what she did. What we're talking about here today is boundaries, and boundaries means being safe. It doesn't mean just escaping the bad situation. It means, hello, Nick, it's good to see you. It means to be safe. And what the first thing we've been talking about, Nick and Nick, Emma, is that what did we ever learn boundaries when we were young? And none of the four of us did learn boundaries, nor was our boundary respected. And now we're talking about ways in which children can learn boundaries. Now, Nick also works with children. So, Nick, I have a question for you, if you're willing to say, how have you helped children set their boundaries so that they feel safe with you?
Can't hear you.
Yeah, I'm not sure your sound isn't on, Nick. You're
Holly,
still-
Denise,
Yes.
Andrea, Nick, I'm going to say my goodbyes now. It was very nice joining you.
Thank you.
gotta
Is
get
there
back.
anything
Y'all
you'd
come
like to
back now,
say?
you hear?
Yeah, that's right, honey. Is there
I
anything
will
you'd
be
like
back.
to say? Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for
Thank you for
contributing to
sharing.
the conversation.
Bye.
Thanks, Angela. And how about Emma? Could you join us? No,
Can't hear you.
something
No,
with your
no sound.
sound, sweetie. It's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll work it out. So,
We
my
will.
friends, here we will. And I'm just really glad to see you. Everybody give a wave to Nick. Nick, we're glad to see you, honey. Yay. Gosh. Okay. So guys, when you look back, because we're in our last 11 minutes here, when we look back on what we've said, what have you noticed? What have you felt about children who are traumatized? What happened to us? What did we learn? And how can that help us or give us a hard time when we're adults? How can we ever have boundaries? Anybody want to comment on what have you noticed that we've talked about?
What I would like to say about it is that by having these conversations, like I've belonged to other groups too of trauma survivors or incest survivors, we can develop our knowledge about boundaries. We can develop understanding from people who have also been traumatized. Now, by talking about it, we didn't get to have those opportunities as a kid. We didn't have a teacher that told us, you're safe with me. We didn't even know we weren't safe. We thought that was normal. Well, at least I did. I thought it was my duty as the oldest daughter to be the one to, satisfy those needs. So
Thank you, Denise.
I think by having, meetings like this and talking about it in a safe place now and knowing that there are safe places, that's going to help us. That's what helps us.
I don't know if you guys can see this because Nick can't come on verbally with her audio. She's able to type things in. So I'm going to read what Nick said unless.
Yeah, read it. I can't find the chat on.
Okay. Okay, here we go. So what Nick Emma is saying, boundaries, it's important to constantly show you're trusting, open, and honest. This is with children. To listen to the children and to talk openly with the children. So to establish boundaries with children, it's giving them what we did not get. Now, I'm not here to talk like a victim. I'm here to talk like a survivor who says it was horrible. And I'm an adult and I want to learn to do better things. So Denise has offered us something. Nick is offering us, look, listen to the kids. I know from my own trauma recovery and writing and research that children need three things. We need to be heard. Someone needs to hear us. We need to be seen. Someone needs to see us. And the third thing is the toughest. We need to be believed. Now, all four of us, was I heard? No. Were you heard? No. Did anyone see you? Did they pay attention to you? No.
No.
And when I said something, like I said to my father, you're hurting me. Was I believed? No. No. It was
It didn't
just,
matter anyway.
didn't matter. And so, Nick, thank you for raising that. Nick is also saying, when I was young, yep, she's saying what we're all saying, just do what the adult tells you. So, my
Yep.
friends, in our remaining time, I always like to end our programs with some hope and also the truth being told. And so the truth that's been told is, man, the way we were raised gave a child no sense of identity, confirmed no sense of identity, and also told us we were doormats. Step on over us, come on in. And especially when it became to intimacy, sexual intimacy, that was a real problem for me because there was no respect. There was just the demand. It took me decades to be able to say to my father, no. And I said it with the proudest, loudest, clearest voice that I could. And that took decades of me discovering who I am inside first. So I want to say, yes, there are things we can do. And I also heard Andrea say, it's really hard being raised without boundaries. How on earth do we learn boundaries for ourselves? So is anybody willing to help us out as we come to an end here? What have you learned that works for you about boundaries? Because one of the problems with boundaries is that there's a boundary that says, no, no, thank you. And then there's a boundary that says,
Keep
you
out.
come back again and you're done. It's a wall. There's a wall and then there's a boundary. And I'm real good at putting up walls. Get out of my face, because that's the only way I felt safe. I'm learning permeable boundaries. That's what people that write about boundaries say, permeable. You can come and go, but you go with consent. So has anybody learned? I'm going to look to see if Nick's going to type anything. Has anybody learned? Denise told us your thing about how you say, I am here, I am safe. Has anybody else learned something that helps you today? Not about being perfect with boundaries, but it's about saying no.
I've really learned that by respecting myself, I demand the same from others. And loving myself, accepting myself, and I think that gives me some esteem and some confidence to have a boundary. But also I need to practice, practice and practice, because it's easy for me to let the boundaries go sometimes with a person, and I need to practice what I'm doing, I need to be very mindful of it, because it'd be easy for me to let my boundaries down. Yeah.
I hear you. And one of the things that Nick is saying is that she's still learning, just like we all are. She's still learning. And she's good at putting up walls. Yes, lady, but now through meditating and learning self-worth, she's getting better. And look, Andrea, that's what you're saying, by learning self-love. And to me, that's like learning who I am, that's worthy of love. If I'm worthy of love, then no, you don't do that. Here's two things that I'm thinking pretty strongly. One is feeling. I don't give anybody a hug anymore, adult or child, without asking permission. Does that make sense? Before I give somebody a hug, I say, I'd like to give you a hug. Is that okay?
Right.
And
So then
sometimes
you're practicing
Mhm.
practicing boundaries for yourself by giving boundaries to others.
Respecting them. And when
Right.
somebody says no, I say, thank you very much. It's like when I'm teaching a class of adults, teaching means facilitating a class of adults. And I say, if you don't want to talk, you always are at choice here. You can just say, I pass. And so if I look at somebody and say, did you want to say something? And she says, no, I passed. I say, give her a hand. Give her a hand because she's putting up a boundary. So I want to talk about that. But the second thing, my friends, is this. I want to ask you, every one of us, do you have an inner circle where there are people that you trust and you are less careful with them? And sometimes that can lead to being hurt. Does that make sense to anybody? Oh, I got the dog. I want the dog.
She's got a lot of dogs,
Oh,
couple. I do not have a place where I feel safe. Well, in my home with my roommate, I feel safe. She will always check in with me before things, and that's heavenly. But outside of my home, I have strong boundaries, but they're not permeable.
I hear you. Anyone else want to say about this? Well, what Nick is saying. Andrea, go ahead.
I was going to say, my dog knows I have no boundaries with her. The animals have no boundaries. There's no boundaries.
And what's it about, sweetie? There's unconditional love.
I know.
Right.
Isn't
But
that
if
what
you-
every child survivor needs?
Yeah.
If you go over to Andrea's house, you have to play frisbee with the dog. You have to.
Oh, I need to respect my boundaries if I'm not in the mood. Let me read what Nick said, and then we'll go to what Andrea, if Andrea has something else to say. Nick said, self-acceptance is the biggest and the hardest journey. Amen. Amen. And self-love is the other next step that's really hard. She's saying, I used to, but the past few years I became more like a hermit. And it's harder to do that, but she's getting better and stronger. Andrea, how about you, sweetie? Is there anything else you'd like to say about boundaries that's helping?
I've had a year of I did a big move geographically, and I did a big career change. And initially I was searching for some security and some acceptance by new people. And I wasn't very good with maintaining my boundaries. And I got hurt by some of the people I thought would be trustworthy, new people in my life. So I have to say that temporarily, I don't have a circle of people that I communicate with often enough. I have people who I've felt out as far as friendship and trust that I want to reach out and spend more time with and be more vulnerable with them. So that's what I'm working on doing now. So I guess I needed to learn. I don't know, it's almost like a judgment on who you trust and who you don't. So that's just what I wanted to share, and
Right, you have to trust your judgment.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having this. And normally I am at work during this time, but I'm thinking that next Monday I might rearrange my schedule so that I can meet.
Right on.
I hope you can, sweetie.
And
Thank you
I hope
so
you can
much.
too.
Thank you
It
very
really helps to talk regularly with other people that understand, that
Yeah.
have been in the same panic as you.
Yeah.
And I'd like to say something for safety overall. Please know that you've got the number that you can call at any time if you want to talk it through with somebody. You can also contact Denise and me. And here's something I do every week. Every week I go to online virtual meetings of trauma survivors, and we have ground rules. One of the ground rules is if one person is talking, another person doesn't start talking. Another ground rule is even if I don't agree with you, I don't criticize you or judge you. We have this ground rule that says, I respect what you say because it's true for you. That's another thing. also we have timed shares. So if one person is going on for most of the time, we can say, you know what, 2 minutes. And we agree to being curious, not judgmental. Because one of the harshest things for trauma survivors is we were judged so harshly growing up that we got the message we don't matter, we don't belong, we're not worthy, we're unlovable. And in groups like this, I want to invite you to do this. When we come together next week, let's come back and say, what are some things we need to do to feel safe with the 4 of us or the 5 of us or with whomever else joins us? Because Denise and I are really committed, I think we all are, to having this be a safe environment where we can be true to ourselves and not feel criticized or judged, but we can just tell the truth. And I just want to see, Nick is saying, yes, will anyone send me a link to online trauma survivors meetings? I will do that. I will do that. Right now, they're called Adult Children of Alcoholics meetings, and you can Google them online. But we're working to change that to Adult Children of Alcoholics and Dysfunctional Families. So all trauma, because so many trauma survivors go to those. I will send you the link,
Thank you.
and I will just type it in right here, right now. But time is up. It is ACA WSO, that's ACA World Service.org. And you can find in any country, there are ACA meetings, but I'll send you more personally. So we need to end. My friends, I want to say thank you to all of you. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Andrea, Denise, Angela, Emma, Nick, Emma. Oh my God. Thank you. And I'm so sorry for what happened to you. And I am hopeful that together we can find ways to live our best lives.
We can.
Yes, we can. Emma, good to be with you all the way over there in England. Thank you so much. Please tell other people so they can join us, and I'm going to sign us off.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.